Hello everybody, this is Philip Hare at Flora High School, and I want to talk to students and parents about AP Human Geography. So we want to sort of answer the question, what is AP all about? And also, what is geography all about? So let's get started. Today and yesterday in class, the first days of school, we did a little activity on disaster response, emergency management, and the role of geography in that. So this work will be available on our class website once we get our laptops rolled out later in the first week. So that very first question, what is AP all about? It stands for Advanced Placement, for those unfamiliar with the program, and it's run by the College Board and ETS, Educational Testing Service. These are the same folks that do the SAT. So AP is really meant to be an equivalency for high school students in regards to college level work. And having taught a human geography introductory course at the University of South Carolina during a summer session, I can say from experience that it's very much an equivalent. We're doing the same types of stuff, asking students to do the same type of work, learn the same concepts. So how do we get high school students to that level? We'll talk about some strategies later on, but they are measured by an AP test, and those are administered in May. The first 2 weeks of May is a testing window, and ours is usually in the second week of May. AP Human Geography is really for any high school student who has a real desire and drive to excel, wants to push themselves academically. It's for students and families that want the chance to earn college credit. Those AP tests, if you get that equivalency score, then many, but not all universities do provide college credit, and that can mean significant financial savings at the university. We've been doing this course at AC Flora. This will be our 10th year. Students don't necessarily have to be the brightest in their class, in the top 10 or anything like that to do well, but they do need a strong work ethic. That is really the main determiner in how successful students are. If they have a little bit maybe extra maturity, that is also nice. So they can handle workload requirements. They can handle the struggle, the very real academic struggle that they may not be used to as they move up from middle school. And students who come in with some more developed reading and vocabulary skills are going to be at an initial advantage. But that's not to say that students who don't work hard, they can still come up to that level and be successful. I also want to mention the role of social media in our lives, in all of our lives. It's great entertainment. It can be practical even. But at the same time, when we are needing to perform for our job or for our class, it can be a huge distraction. And so students are really going to need to be able to, again, show that maturity and choose studying instead of Snapchat. All right, what is geography? Many of us have maybe never taken a geography course, or maybe it was a long time ago, and a lot of people think it's just about maps and locations of places. That's not the case at all. It's a really dynamic field, a really interesting field, helps to explain the world around us and make better decisions. So here are the 7 official topics or units that we'll be covering and working through over the course of this school year. I want to give you just a brief preview of each of these. So sort of what are some sample things that we might talk about? How might we think about human activity on the earth geographically? So let's start out real quick with a map of NFL teams. Season is coming up. Preseason has already begun. A lot of people were excited. And so this is a nice map. It just very straightforward shows us location of each NFL team, their conference, division, that sort of thing. So very simple map, and using a little bit of shape and color to show some extra data about these teams. So that's all well and good, but what if we want to know a little bit about the fan base? Well, we need some data, and social media, going back to social media, can provide us that data. So on the right, we have a map created from Twitter user data. Basically, things that we've liked or interacted with, that data gets aggregated and can be mapped. It's very mappable. And so here we can see by county sort of team affiliations. And we can start to think about this geographically or spatially. It looks like Denver has the largest fan base by area, but I'm willing to bet it's not by number or population. Tampa Bay down in central western Florida, very, very small market area fan base in contrast. So lots of variety in the NFL market. Okay, let's talk about movement of people. Oftentimes when we think about migration, the conversation immediately goes to international migration, people moving from country to country. But each country also has tremendous internal migration. And so here's a map depicting some Census Bureau data. We're looking at fiscal year 2017, net migration in and out. So we can immediately start to see states like New York and Wyoming losing people, right? Places in the Northeast, the Midwest, they are having people move out, whereas Western states, southern states are seeing that population gain. Again, this is just domestic migration. And so you see South Carolina pop out near the top of that scale with 9.9% net migration. Arizona, you see these Sunbelt communities. So a little bit of way to think about population. And of course, we could start to ask questions about what could be pushing people away from the communities where they had been living and what might be attracting them to their destination, their new home. Culture is a very wide-ranging unit. We can talk about a number of cultural traits, language being one of them. So this is a neat map from a project at Harvard University taking a look at dialect within the United States. And we can see all these red dots at the top in the Northeast and Midwest. According to the key here, these are people who pronounce this word as lawyer, profession. But the blue dots, dominantly in the South, those are people who pronounce that word, same language, but different pronunciation, lawyer. So dialect is really fascinating to study. Again, people all speaking the same language, but how does that dialect vary by region? Political geography is also a very wide-ranging unit, but one of the things we'll talk about, borders. And so this map from 1784, very famous early map of the United States, but it just doesn't look like the United States we know today. Those borders look really different. It's only part of what we know. We know we've undergone lots of expansion. And so the process of changing borders, countries getting larger, countries getting smaller, is, of course, dynamic. It's ongoing, and there's lots to explain and explore there. Whether we were gaining territory through purchases, wars, treaty negotiations, all of those sort of help us understand how countries interact together. And so this map, again, early American map, we see some early American border. South Carolina, much larger than it is now. Some of that land was chopped off and given to other states. Across the top of the map, we had to do some negotiating with the British and define that border between our new nation and what became Canada. Moving on, let's think about food, agriculture, and rural land use. So here we have a map depicting the most consumed meat here in the United States, chicken. So this is from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and their Census of Agriculture. Each dot represents 2 million broilers, or as they're also called, chickens that we'll eat. And so we can see a very particular spatial distribution of big-time chicken production, and as a result, there's lots of movement of chicken around the country. Chicken is grown and raised in one place, processed, and then shipped out for consumption other places. So again, much spatial discussion there. And of course, we might want to see what does chicken look like in the rural landscape. And so here within the white circle, we've got our chicken grow houses, these long, low metal buildings. Maybe there's 20 or 30,000 or 40,000 chickens in each of those buildings. And of course, outside of the circle, you can start to count some other chicken grow houses. This, by the way, is in Newberry County. All right, economic geography. Lots of good stuff here. Let's go with a product made right here in South Carolina, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. We think about this plane being made in the United States, made in South Carolina. That's true to an extent. It's assembled here in Charleston. But it's actually a collection of parts that are produced around the world. So there's this real global supply chain surrounding the 787. And typically when we think about the economics of the world, the stuff that we use and buy every day, it's not uncommon to venture outside of the United States. Lots of global interconnectedness within the economy. And of course, another satellite image, and we zoom down. Here's what the Boeing facility looks like down in North Charleston. Our last unit, urban geography. One thing we can think about the activities of people on the earth. If we think about cities as collections of services and people that use those services, well, how do we access those services? Most often by car. And so that means that if we have a lot of cars, we're going to need a lot of parking. And so that's all well and good, but we could question this arrangement, and we could say, well, what other possibilities exist for our landscape other than parking? And so this map is of Houston, a little bit zoomed in on downtown Houston. Some GIS software was used to calculate the percentage of land dedicated to surface parking, and that's all the land that we see highlighted in red here. And ultimately, we're looking at just over a fifth of Houston's downtown dedicated to surface parking. That's a lot. That's not garage parking. That's surface parking only, single level. And what else could Houston be doing with that land if they weren't so car-based? Most American cities are quite car-based. That's our lifestyle. But again, what if there were other arrangements? All right. So that's a quick run-through of some sample topics of each of our units, a little bit of how we might think about stuff, some different visualizations we could use in class, and we'll continue to dive into more of this as course goes on. So a little bit more to end this with what is AP again. I want to talk quickly about some of the logistics of AP Human Geography. That AP exam, there's the date, May 14th, Tuesday, 2019. We're going to be at 12 p.m. this year. And so that test is broken into two parts. We'll be doing multiple choice first. You can see 75 questions in 60 minutes. And then 3 short essay style responses. And we get a little bit more time there, 75 minutes. Students must answer each of those questions. There's no choice. And so because that's the test format, our own unit test will mirror that. We'll do lots of practice on how to attack difficult multiple choice questions, how to tackle the writing. We'll make sure that we do lots of work throughout the year on that. Once we get our AP scores, they'll be packaged in a 5-point scale, and we are shooting for a 3 or higher. 3 and above is passing. 4 or 5 is, of course, better. And as far as college credit, there's a lot of variance out there in the land of colleges and universities. So there's a great College Board page where you can look up individual schools. It will take you to their admissions page, and you can see exactly the standards that they set. You have a whole range of stuff. Some colleges will give credit for lots of stuff, 3 and above. Some colleges will only give credit for 4s and 5s, and some colleges love to see you take AP courses, but don't give you any credit whatsoever. So there's, again, lots of variants. Check it out on the College Board website. How do our students do? We feel pretty good about their scores. Close to 2/3, almost 2/3 on average will pass, our 9th graders. The global pass rate hovers right around 50%, 52%, right there. And that's everyone in the world taking the test. High schoolers, many of them will be 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. There are lots of 9th graders around the country taking these tests, but lots of upperclassmen as well. And so we feel pretty good beating the global pass rate on this test. And we also feel good that most of our kids who do pass with a 4 or a 5 rather than a 3. So our 9th graders are working hard. We're, of course, striving for better numbers there, but we can always get better there. If you want to take a deeper dive into the data, follow that link there, and you can see data from each of the years that I've taught the course and a few of my comments on that data as our course has grown and our results have shifted here and there. Okay, a little bit of Flora grading information. We are still on the 10-point grading scale that the state went to a couple of years ago. Flora has made just a couple of changes to our grade system, and so we've consolidated our weight categories into 3. So we have still our major assessment category. These would be our tests, multiple choice and writing, maybe some projects. That'll be 50% of the entire grade. And then we have this other category, minor assignments. This will be a variety of things, including quizzes, and that will be 40% of the grade. And then a 9 weeks assessment. This will take a lot of forms, could be a project, could be an actual test. That's 10%. On the right-hand side, let's say you're a student or a parent frustrated with a test score. Definitely contact me, email me. But here are 3 tools that we offer at AC Flora for students to improve their learning beyond what we do already in the classroom. So there's a redo policy, and for AP students, that typically means test corrections. Come in, review the missed material, really dig into why you got questions wrong, and then earn some credit back on that. We've got weekly free tutoring, an hour's worth. That'll be on Wednesday from 3:30 to 4:30. And then we also have in-class Falcon time. This will be usually about twice a month. We'll just kind of stop learning new content, do some review, or we'll do some extra practice on our writing, something like that. All right, number 1, rules for students. Keep trying. That's the big thing. You got to push through the struggle. You can't just give up when you encounter that first academic struggle in high school. Always contact me when you have a concern or a problem. And make sure you read. That seems self-explanatory, but every year there's students who just don't do their work, don't do their assigned reading, don't pay attention in class, and then wonder why they're not doing well. So make sure you're doing that. The language of geography is a lot. There's a lot of vocabulary, but we've got to learn it to speak the language of geography. So there's, of course, many ways to do that. Flashcards are an excellent way, and Quizlet is an excellent online tool for using flashcards. And lastly, just start thinking and talking geographically. One of the cool things about geography is we can just open up any newspaper, and really geography helps us sort of understand what's going on in our community, in our country, and in our world. And so maybe we're sitting down at dinner, maybe we're on a road trip, maybe we're just standing in line at a store, and something catches our attention, and we can probably speak geographically about it. So those are always great conversations to have at home, and help students sort of apply what they've been learning in class. So that's it for what is AP and what is human geography. Let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email, give me a phone call at Flora. Thanks.